Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth, the study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which is science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. If you ever have a problem in searching for dharmic benchmarks, then Bhagavad Gita is the best benchmark because it sets a standard, and in very few words you understand the current situation of the world. That's how Bhagavad Gita is helpful. And that is one book, as much as you want to read, still you'll find something else over there. And that is the beauty of Kali Yuga also, because we have very short memories. Secondly, it brings us back to our current state of existence. But believe me, unless your vrittis are subdued, you won't be able to understand Bhagavad Gita. That's why some people can't understand Bhagavad Gita. And my friend is there with the researcher, Rishi, Muni, Acharya, and Tapasvi also. He studies a lot. He teaches, follows, and also gives wonderful talks. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Nilesh Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
Yeah, namaskar. So again the question comes in the caveman mindset, caveman. Because Europeans are searching everything in a cave. They have made a theory that before 16th century, when they were in diapers, intellectual diapers, they think that the whole world is living in a cave. Now, when the Indian academics start borrowing that logic, and the current problems happen, like what is happening in the case of Shraddha, like people worshipping dead spirits, graves, which is not authorized as per Bhagavad Gita. So what do you have to say on that?
Okay, 2 points. So people living in their caves, of course, the physical caves. Now, many have come out of their physical caves, so they think they are no longer living in a cave. But just like you mentioned, like a mana buddhi sharira. So sharira, it may not be staying in a cave, but the vritti, the mind, that might be staying in a cave. And the buddhi also can be tamasi buddhi. Mind also can have this tamasic Shraddha, for example, because Shraddha comes from a mind at the level of a mana. And then Pradnya is at the level of a Buddhi. And that can be, Pradnya cannot be Tamasi, but Buddhi can be Tamasi.
That's right.
And from that, what you just asked, the second question, the modes of worship, how hypocritical it is for Abrahamic religions, that all Abrahamic religions need a sign, need a icona or icona, like a pratik, we can call a pratik, a symbol. Okay. So for example, in Judaism, the wall, in Jerusalem is considered a holy place where they will stand against the wall and pray. And yeah, absolutely understandable. I mean, we respect that, right? That we understand that everyone needs a pratik. You will see that in Christianity. You will see that depending on different sects of Christianity. I mean, many sects now. I mean, it's just interesting to see with my friends and colleagues when in America we talk about, and I don't understand the nuances of these different sects, but the Lutheran, the Southern Baptist, the Episcopal, Pentecostal, I mean, it just goes on and on. Then, of course, broadly, we know the Catholic versus Protestants, of course, the Mormon Church, and their internal bickering that might also go on. But this iconography, like a symbol, a sign, if something is needed, is actually, it's so intrinsic to us, to human beings, let's say, that no matter what a particular ideology, but I use the word ideology because of the nature of Abrahamic religions, they will have it. So I talked about the Judaism, and I'm not saying this in any negative way. Rather, I'm saying that is almost a necessity for a human psyche. So in Judaism, you'll think of a certain place like a holy place, holy mountain, holy wall. In Christianity, the symbol of a cross, or if when certain people are just like a no to a statue, but others will be okay with the statue of a Jesus. And many of my friends and colleagues I'll see in their houses, beautifully carved statue. And in Islam also, although again Islam will talk about no symbols, no iconography, but actually it is there. And many of my Muslim friends would agree with that. Actually, they do agree. So, for example, a very special significance to a Makkah in the sense of, say, Indian Muslims. I think I might have told you this story, Aditya. Indians and Pakistani Muslims. When I knew them, some of them, because they are also students at the university in Canada. So in India, I know when they do their namaz, they focus towards Makkah. And so from Indian context, they focus towards northwest. Okay, that's where Saudi Arabia directionally would be. Okay, fair point. Now, I'm not kidding. What you'll find surprising is because they have come up with that same mindset. So like the Bhagavad Gita or the entire Sanatana narratives talk about Desha Kala Patra, Desha Kalecha Patra, Tadhanam Satvikam Srutam. You have to take these into account and make adjustment. So now there, they from this is placed at 55 latitude, okay, 55 latitude, almost ready to go inside the 60 circle, towards North Pole. We are up there, and these folks from India and Pakistan, when they are doing their namaz, guess what? They were also facing northwest. Now, I don't mean to laugh at them, but just think of this. From there, they are looking. So this is place in Edmonton. So they're looking at northwest. Think of this. They're looking at Alaska. Okay. So I'm saying if the meaning, the true purpose of some of the rules, like Agama, sometimes the Agama is like a certain, what you can say, a manual for a certain car, a manual for a certain place, a manual for a certain situation, time, place, circumstances. But if we don't understand the generic and a broader meaning behind it, then people will make all kinds of interesting things. I mean, they may sound very funny. So back to Bhagavad Gita. On the other hand, what you find is the Bhagavad Gita, because why it is the principle, as I say it, and I would love to see anyone contradicting that, why I see Bhagavad Gita as the principal text of Sanatan Vedic Dharma. And Sanatana, so it's not like any ideology or any religious aspect. Why it is applicable to the whole world is because in spite of the fact that it was stated in a certain place, so like a time, place, circumstances. So it was told 7,500 plus years ago by Krishna to Arjun in northern India. So certain symbolism that's relevant to that geography, relevant to that time, and we can talk about some of that too, by the way, today, will come into it. But the message is universal. But let me complete that. You started saying people worshipping in all kinds of crazy things. In 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you have that Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Sattva Rajatama. Okay, there is a Sattva Gun, Raja Gun, and Tamo Gun. Tamo Gun is extremely mode of ignorance. That's how Prabhupada has translated. It's a something that where people see everything 180-degree opposite of what the truth is. So, Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshamsi Rajasa Pretambhuta Ganashchane Yajante Tamasa Jana. Okay, people will create something as a place of worship based on the dead bodies, okay, or based on the dead individuals and stuff like that. That is a tamasi. That is that kind of worship is a tamasi. It's an ignorant worship. It's of a very inferior kind of worship, not the appropriate worship. That is the significance of it. And all the spiritual traditions have to guard themselves to see what different vikruti, what twists and weirdness and confusion and delusion that each one of us has to protect from that. So that's what it is. But Bhagavad Gita's message, and we'll talk today about it, how Desha Kala Patra, it is specifically rooted in a specific geography, but specific time and a specific context. Okay, desha, kala, but also patra, the circumstances. Now, what is important is, although it is stated in that way, the beauty of Bhagwan Vyasadeva, the way he has put together Mahabharata for the benefit of us, is that wisdom is for all time, as long as we know how to adjust for our time, our place, and our circumstances. And we will talk about that today. But also the fact he represented in such a fashion how even the references from Bhagavad Gita, when evaluated and understood in the context of the Mahabharata, because Bhagavad Gita is like a wisdom, like a essence, but Mahabharata is the elaboration of that essence. So if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita, you have to look at the Mahabharata. And if you want to get the essence of Mahabharata, then you have to read Bhagavad Gita. As simple as that. Back to you.
See, one of the things is like people say generally, Gita is a very small, it's not the main thing. I'm going to go or read the Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and then I'll come to Gita without reading Veda. So there is one more thing comes up is we've already discussed one time before that you can be called Sanatani if you read Veda. Otherwise you're not a Sanatani. So that is also the self-certificate people have started giving. And they often ignore Shankaracharya, whom they are trying to follow. Or they often ignore Ramanujacharya or the great. I mean, there are few philosophies in India: Dvaita, Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, Achintya Bheda, like 4 or 5 group schools of thought, and they all merge in Bhagavad Gita. All of them. There is no one has said. Adi Shankaracharya was the most radical one. You can say he said there will be only one book, Gita. No one else has said it, but Adi Shankaracharya said it. So to such people, what they do is they disinspire the population to actually, like you correctly said, that, if you just, Bhagavad Gita is the essence. Like after the meal is done, you eat the sweets and then all your hunger is subsided. All the taste buds are satisfied. But everything else is needed before you reach that level. Otherwise, your body won't be healthy. But for a spiritualist, they start from Gita and they move outside also. So like I started from Gita and then gradually moved to Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bhagavad Puran, other places. So to such people, what do we have to tell them? That where are they wrong? Because they're misguiding the people. First of all, they're no business. They never, nowadays, because since 2014, Sanatan Dharma has become popular. And then therefore every YouTube channel, people who did not even, it's very good they're searching, very good they're speaking, very good. Before they did not speak. Now they're coming and they're actually misguiding the people. Like I am only read Upanishad and I read only this. I read only this. Why make such distinctions? Why? And the people who are worshipping Dargah, dead bodies, like Nilesh said, 17.4. It's called Tamas Gun. Krishna is not saying don't do that. Krishna is saying it is in Tamas Gun. So you have to judge, are you in Tamas Gun? If you don't like it, then move on. Go to Satagun. Now that is Devan. So what do you have to say to such people who are actually misguiding people?
Yeah. I mean, lot of important points you raised there. People will be always there to misguide. A person who is situated or person who is a seeker in the sense who truly wants to know, this is not a guilt trip on anyone, it's not like saying, hey, only if you listen to Aditya and Nilesh, then only you are, on the right path. No, what we are doing is to the best of our abilities in any individual's journey towards understanding the Sat. Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma. In that journey, many will find this useful. Many others may not find this to, appropriate to their taste. They don't have to necessarily listen. There are many other ways. So now talking about the people who deliberately misled. Okay, now they misled. We don't know if they're doing it deliberately because they may be attached to that particular philosophy. Just like Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshansi Rajasa Pretam Bhuta Ganashani Yajante Tamasajana. Those are tamasi people. I mean, they are on their journey. They have a long journey. Not to say that we have a very short journey either. And personally, I mean, people who travel a lot or people who love travel, they know that the journey is the destination. Journey is a part of it. Let's enjoy that. But those people may or may not be doing deliberately, because even if they're doing it, they may not be aware, because the level, their intellect is in that tamasi mode. Adharmam dharmam itiya manyate tamasa vruta sarvarthan viparitamsha buddhisa partha tamasi. Just the thing that is dharma, they consider it adharma. Something that is adharma, they consider it dharma. So therefore, some people will just create something, which is not correct thing, but a dead body is a person in the memory of some dead individual, create something and create that as a place of worship. Actually, many times, obviously, to fool people, right? But even I'm saying, even the intention, somebody's intention may not be fooling, but still the person is doing a wrong thing. And that's where Krishna, again, the 16th chapter that you're referring to, or 17th chapter, that will also come. So what Krishna is saying is, Krishna is, you see, there, I mean, in Bhagavad Gita, you will see a descriptive analysis of nature, of our universe, samsara, and you'll also see a prescriptive guidance. So sometimes Krishna says, hey, you know what? These people, some people say this, some people say this, some people say this, but let me now tell you what I think. So now he has given a description of like a Purva Paksha or a review of what was existing in his time. But now he says, here is my specific advice. In some other places, he's not giving a specific advice. He's not giving a prescriptive advice. I mean, it's not a prescription. He's being descriptive. And so in that case, just like Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshamsi Rajasa Pretam Bhuta Ganashchani Yajante Tamasa Jana, he is descriptive. Now, for an intelligent person, for a seeker, there is a prescription, because it is said, who worships the deities, I mean, the gods, like gods is again the wrong word, Devata. Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshamsi Rajasa Pretam Bhuta Ganashchani. So he's a prescriptive, just like for a food. Like he says, so the people who in the mode of Rajogun, they tend to like what? Katavam, Lalavana, Tyushna, Tikshna, Ruksha, Vidahina. Okay. He's not exactly saying whether you should eat it or not. Okay. In a way, in a balanced food, all of these rasa are important. But he's saying, if somebody does an excessive, more emphasis on Katavam, Lalavana, Tyushna, Tikshna, Ruksha, this is a description of the foods, different taste. I'll not translate that. Katavam Lalavana Tyushna Tikshna Ruksha Vidayana Ahara Rajases Cheva Dukkha Shoka Mayaprada. He says, if you do this is your emphasis, the kind of food that you eat, then it will lead to Dukkha Shoka. So it is very descriptive. It's cause and effect relationship. That's what he's saying. Now, this relationship, for example, in India, you may know Adityaji, Lavangi Mirchi, you might have heard, like a very small one, like the Thai chili, and very hot, crazy hot. Now, if you come to America, that may change. It may be now jalapenos. But that's what I mean by the universality of Bhagavad Gita. But the Katavamla Lavana Tyushna Tikshna Ruksha Vidahina remains constant. Back to you.
The very interesting thing you said just now about the Bhagavad Gita and other places. Now, people who want to do advanced course in Veda, these Vedas, like I have Rig Veda in my house, and unless I have the mindset of Bhagavad, I cannot understand Veda, because I cannot put the context of Indra. The Rig Veda is Indra, Sam Veda is a favorite Veda of Krishna, and somewhere the stories are all the same everywhere. Similar stories with little more details, less details. So without a context, you cannot read them.
Agreed.
Otherwise, you will make mistakes over there. Mahabharata is much more easier to read. It has all the stories of Veda also. It is all the wisdom of Veda. But it is around this context, the story of Pandavas and Krishna. So without context, you will still not understand. And I was just before this talk, I gave a class today morning, as usual, on Saturday morning. And again, people were telling me that because I don't know Sanskrit, I cannot understand. Well, if you know Devanagari, you can begin to read it, learn from Gita, Sanskrit. It's very easy. If you don't know Devanagari, then it's a different issue altogether. Then
Correct.
yes, you have to rely on European translations. But I must tell you that first read the Indian translations.
Hmm.
Pick up Gita Press, any book you pick up,
Yeah.
read the Indian translations in your own mother tongue.
Yeah.
Then you go on to any European translations, and to the large extent avoid them, because
Yeah.
somewhere or the other they introduce European mindset over there,
Yeah.
Christian mindset or Abrahamic mindset, like the monotheism is a European pride word. We are monotheistic. That's what the church
Hmm.
has taught them.
Yeah.
But in Sanatan Dharma, is monotheistic as well as polytheistic. It is both. If you're
Yeah.
a Ganesh devotee, then you're monotheistic.
Yeah. Why? Well, yeah, that's right. But otherwise, why be thrifty? You know.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah. One quick point that I want to mention, that you mentioned about different acharyas and the different views, even within the Vedanta. See that a very narrow-minded, dogmatic kind of discussions I see, like as you said, since 2014. There is a lot more interest, and people have found their good number of people have found the confidence, which is all good. Even those people who are doing it for a very limited benefit, very short-term benefits they're looking for. I mean, they are contributing in their own ways. Just like the people who deliberately try to confuse people, I would say, Aditya, even they are contributing in their own way. And it is this way because now this presents an opportunity for a seeker to see who is right. Because somebody is saying, for example, take Vedanta, and from extreme one side Kevala Advaita, okay, to totally purely Dvaita, something like this. When I try to read this, and when somebody takes a Dvaita view, like the person just goes so crazy and has to blaspheme everyone, not necessarily from a philosophical point of view. And of course, philosophical point of view, we understand why they do it. It's like, if you're talking of making a certain dish, then you're saying, oh, how much I love that dish. But it is not in the context of saying you hate other dishes or anything. Just like you are now working on a Yoga Sutra, writing and whatnot, you just mentioned, you will find all six Darshan Shastra. There is a debate between them, but the debate is to refine their own particular argument. That's how the debate helps. Same thing with the different schools of Vedanta. I mean, I have studied all of them to a very different degree. And frankly, I find joy and insights, beautiful insights in everything, from Adi Shankara, like a Kevala Advaita, all the way to Madhvacharya's the Dvaita text, and everything in between, the Shuddha Advaita, Vishuddha Advaita, Dvaita Advaita, and now Dvaita Advaita, I have not seen many texts. My point is that is true if you are studying Vedanta, that is also true if you are studying Darshan Shastra. But even those people, in a very ordinary way, the materialistic or deliberately twisting, they provide the opportunity for a seeker to know. For example, people will ask me in the Twitter and social media and email and whatnot, and I can't respond to everyone, of course, because of the sheer volume. But the point is that somebody will ask, "Oh, what do you think of this person's claim or so and so?" And if they don't say the specific claim, I say, "What claim this? What aspect this person is saying?" I mean, it's not the person is not the focus. Tell me what he or she is claiming and what is their evidence. Then I can talk about it. And then I also demand that if that person is asking me, has that person read this particular work about which he's asking me? And has he read my works? Read meaning listen to or read my blogs, books, and whatnot. Because if he or she who is coming to me and asking these questions for the context, and if they have not done their homework, what is the point of me answering? First thing, it's not correct to answer that person because the person doesn't understand another wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanena sattvadarshina. Either through your prajna you're going to understand it, or if you want to just know ready-made knowledge, then you have to have a shraddha, trust in the person you are asking the question. Once I give the answer and again you're going to go haywire, then there is no point asking that question. But let's take this Bhagavad Gita discussion. And remember, it is, to our audience, it is part of Mahabharata. In fact, it is the essence of everything that Vyasadeva wanted to say through Mahabharata. And so it's a essence, but to understand that essence, of course, start with the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore I say, everyone asks me, so what should I study? What subject I should research in? And now I have found the answer. It says, start with Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita will tell you what is your Swadharma. Bhagavad Gita will tell you what is your Varna. What is your Swadharma? What is your Varna? Okay. And that way, accordingly, the person will able to behave. So I'm going to connect that with Bhagavad Gita, but let's begin there.
Yeah.
Say, since you are a student, Adityaji, of also Bhagavad Puran, you will see, like in the discussion between Krishna and Uddhav, like Uddhav Gita, there, the verse that I'm going to share today from Bhagavad Gita is also being discussed in slightly modified form in Bhagavad Puran. Okay,
right.
I mean, so just like Mahabharata is connected with Bhagavad Gita, and to understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, you mentioned that you find the being in the mood of a Bhagavad Puran and its message or its philosophy helps you understand the Vedas. And that's so true. Or you also mentioned today, and we'll connect this. Now, for our viewers, this was not like something Adityaji and myself, we had discussed this and that's how it was going to go. No, not at all. Adityaji did not know specifically what I was going to talk about. And I did not know what questions Adityaji was going to ask me or what specific subject Adityaji was going to discuss. But that's the beauty of when two people in a right mood, in a bhakti mood, they come together, there is a wonderful dialogue, samvad, that occurs. So if we have to give a title to today's discussion or today's what I wanted to cover or I want to cover, it's a Mrigashirsha and Margashirsha. They mean the same thing in a way. Mrigashirsha is a name of a nakshatra, and Margashirsha is the lunar month that is connected with the nakshatra Mrigashirsha, which is to say, when in a Amanta system, or even any system for that matter, Indian lunisolar system, when the full moon is near nakshatra Mrigashirsha, and of course there are some additional rules of Panchanga. It's nothing, there is never anything superficial, but I'm simplifying it. When the full moon is near nakshatra Mrigashirsha, following the rules of Panchang, that particular time of the year, we call it the lunar month of Margashirsha. Okay, so Mrigashirsha is a nakshatra, and when the full moon is near that nakshatra, and with following the additional rules of a Panchanga lunisolar calendar, that would be typically designated as the lunar month of Margashirsha. Now, this nakshatra, there are 27 or 28 nakshatra. It's not like or like, is there a confusion? No, there is no confusion. That right now the 27 nakshatra, but there is also a 28 nakshatra, and Aditya and myself, we have done an episode why that 28 nakshatra was removed 14,500 BC. So almost like 16,500 years ago. 16,500 years ago, one of the functional nakshatra called Abhijit, Brahma Rashi, or modern astronomy Vega. Okay, why that was removed? Which means what? It was there in the ancient Indian astronomy system, Panchanga system. And when was it added? Actually, it was well known and it has been discussed for 75,000 plus years. But as far as the current nakshatra system is concerned, we have every reason to assert that this system began around, say, 28,000 BC, like a 30,000-year-old system. But about 16,000 years ago, there was a need. Some of the astronomy parameters have changed in a ways that one nakshatra had to be removed. So anyway, so that's why 27 nakshatra. My point is, each of these nakshatra have a nakshatra devata. Sometimes the nakshatra is identified by its own name, like a Mrigashirsha, Mruga, you'll get some short name like that. Also has many other names, Agrahayan, and we will see why that is, okay? Agrahayan, okay? That is a name given to this nakshatra space in the area of Mrigashirsha and so on. Kritika also gets a name like that. We will see why this nakshatra gets that name. Some names are changeable, other names are same. So for example, like take I don't know the names of many other politicians, so I'll just go back to like our dear Prime Minister Modi ji. So Modi ji's name is Narendra Modi. Okay, and now right now we are calling him Pradhan Mantri also. But before 2014, he was not the Pradhan Mantri. Then we would have called him a Mukhya Mantri, or whatever they call in Gujarat, but Maharashtra Mukhya Mantri. Okay, Mukhya Mantri of Gujarat. Now he's a Pradhan Mantri, but it's Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi, and now before 2014, Mukhya Mantri Narendra Modi. So certain aspect changes, right? It's the same thing that you will find with these nakshatra, different names. Certain Mrigashirsha will remain the same, but what title, why it is called a first nakshatra or why it is not called a first nakshatra, that changes. But the nakshatra also has a devata. By the way, I want to make people aware, those who are coming from astrology, okay, the Phala Jyotish, not to confuse with what I do, astronomy, Khagola Shastra, the devatas are also different. So the nakshatra deity in the astrology for a Mrigashirsha is different. Okay, now what they do is they connect the nakshatra with the planets, nakshatra with the graha, like, so what you call the Mercury, Venus, Mars, Moon, Sun, Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu. This is different. This is in the nakshatra system, but we are attaching not the planets, but not always the planets, but something else. In this case, it so happens the nakshatra devata for a Mrigashirsha nakshatra is what? Is moon, Earth's moon. Okay, Shashi, Soma, and these are the different names. It's very important for you to understand the connection of Mrigashirsha, a very important connection for the Mahabharata times. And since Bhagavad Gita is stated at that time in Bhagavad Gita, and how to understand some of the astronomy verses from Bhagavad Gita. If you don't have this background knowledge, you are going to be saying, oh, what is this guy saying something about this? I listened to so many Pravachanka, so many students, researchers of Bhagavad Gita, so many students of Bhagavad Gita who give good pravachan. They never talked about this. Well, guess what? Just like this Vedanga, if they don't understand Jyotish, and to that extent, our knowledge will always be hampered. Like, say, for example, Shiksha, Chanda, like Vyakarana, Nirukta. My knowledge is limited in that area. My knowledge of Jyotish is limited. Astronomy is limited. Kalpa, almost non-existent. Okay, so the Vedangas I'm talking. So to that extent, it will be hampered. That's understood. Now let's look at what is the connection of a Mrigashirsha, but also Margashirsha, and also the nakshatra devata of Mrigashirsha, Soma, Shashi, Moon, in the Mahabharata, but also specifically in Bhagavad Gita. So we will start somewhere. Quickly, what's the big deal about the Margashirsha, the month of Margashirsha, but also Mrigashirsha, nakshatra, at the time of Mahabharata war? If you look at all the description, phases and positions of the moon through the 18 days of the war, phases, but also the positions, what you're going to find out is, look at this. That's how we can take that data from the previous page, 30 plus. And guys, when I said 30, I'm being extremely conservative. There's a much more data. But at some point you says, okay, I got the point. I say to myself, okay, Nilesh, how many more descriptions of particular reference or particular context you want to pull from Mahabharata to make the case? You don't need it. Just like Bhishma Nirvan, like more than 95 days. I started with only 3. So 3 references are sufficient. But then there are these pseudo Mahabharata dating researchers. They started raising some utterly foolish, nonsensical, unscientific, and illogical objections. So to answer them, to respond to their very foolish questions, but that really helps in terms of even the foolish question is useful. Okay, so I looked at Mahabharata and brought additional. So now 3 references become 6 references. The 6 references, conclusion is the same. Bhishma is lying on the bed of arrows for more than 95 days. The conclusion gets stronger. Then to that additional, then these same pseudo Mahabharata dating researchers raised some additional objections. So I went back to Mahabharata text to respond to those objections. Now I found 23. So from 3 to 6 to 23. There is more objection. This is all good stuff, guys. Okay. And of course, if the objections is sensible, I mean, sensible meaning it is useful to increase the knowledge of Mahabharata, or increase the knowledge of our understanding of Shastrartha, or understanding the truth, the wisdom, then of course we should do it. Pradnya, if it helps, it becomes exercise for your mind, but also for intellect, and then we should do it. So now 23, the next time I went, additional questions, 60, and now 100. Now when I say now, I mean like by 2016 it was 100 references. But are those only 100 references and no more? No, actually there are more. If truly wants to, somebody is still not convinced, and the person has to be utterly foolish. If somebody is still not convinced, then they shouldn't even bother referring to Mahabharata about the Bhishma Nirvana duration. But if they still want to do it, then it's like, we cannot count the references, because entire Bhishma Parva, Drona Parva, Karna Parva, Shalya Parva, Saptika Parva, Stri Parva, Shanti Parva, Anushasan Parva, and even the Ashramvasik Parva, but just before that, Ashwamedhik Parva. All the evidence, every single thing needs to be counted. My point is, just looking for the phases and positions of the moon, this is super rich, like 30 plus references, but there could be more. There are actually more. What they show you is that the Mahabharata was started on Amavasya, Kartik Amavasya. How do we know Amavasya? Based on the descriptions of the moon, or lack of descriptions of the moon for the first 7 days of the war, 8 days of the war, 7 days actually. And then through that days, you have a lot of descriptions of the moon. 12th day through the 18th day, full moon descriptions. And not only the phases, but you also have the position descriptions of moon, like such as on the 12th day near full moon, like moon near Kritika, and then let's see, around the 16th day near Vishakha. But this is not the Vishakha that comes after Chaitra and Swati. This is the Vishakha that you will find, it appears in Mahabharata. It also appears in Ramayana. How consistent, separated by 7,000 plus years. And that this Vishakha here, it is referred to the area of a Punarvasu, but that's a different subject. 17th day, and we have this consistency. 17th day, again, the Punarvasu is very clearly mentioned. Mahabharata mentions the 18th day of the war as the day when the Kali Yuga began. Kali Yuga is called Tishya or Pushya. It gives the reason why it is called Tishya or Pushya, because it began on the Pushya Nakshatra. That is the last day of the war. So we also know the Nakshatra on the 18th day of the war. So beautiful. The point I want to bring is, what is the conclusion of this? That the Mahabharata war, majority of the Mahabharata war took place during the first part of the Shukla Paksha of Shukla Paksha of a Margashirsha month, lunar month of Margashirsha. Just keep that in mind. Now let's quickly walk through how this relates to the dating of Mahabharata. The astronomy evidence, astronomy descriptions from the Bhagavad Gita itself. Okay, we are going to get there. But in order for people to understand, I wanted to show that the Mahabharata evidence is saying that the Mahabharata war happened during the Shukla Paksha of Margashirsha, based on many references, but specifically the phases and positions of the moon through 18 days of the war. We know what we found out of Arundhati Vasishta. It has given us a specific bracket. It says no Mahabharata war. Mahabharata war is impossible as a historical event anytime after 4636 BC, anytime after 4508 BC. This is just based on a Arundhati Vasishta observation and the latest and the greatest astronomy data from NASA, from Hubble telescopes, and so on. Then we looked at Bhishma Nirvana. Again, I mentioned like 3 references, 6 references, 23 references, 60 references, 100 plus references. No matter how much people do the dance and singing, they have to accept the reality. Otherwise, forget talking about the Mahabharata, that Bhishma was on the bed of arrows for more than 95 days. And what is the significance of that? Well, the significance is that the Mahabharata war, again, just purely on a Bhishma Nirvana, forget Arundhati, did not happen after 4700 BC. It did not happen before 7000 BC. Now let's bring up that evidence based on the phases and positions of the moon, that the war itself took place during Margashirsha, and the war itself took place during the first half of Sharad, and it took place what? Say about 95 days or more than 95 days, or if you're referring to the first day of the war, it was like 102 or 105 days separated, removed prior to the date of winter solstice. That's what Mahabharata text is saying. And that allows us astronomically to find out these limits. So what does it tell us? When you add all of this, it says the Mahabharata war is only possible before 5000 BC and after 6700 BC. Last time, Aditya ji and I, and you will see that some of you who may not have seen it when the video comes out, we discussed purely on the Shakra Amavasya, the Krishna Karna dialogue, and then looking at the Bhishma Nirvana evidence, Bhishma on the bed of arrows for more than 95 days, combined with the day of winter solstice, combined with the separation of Nakshatra Jeshta from the point of winter solstice of 135 degrees. And today it is only 20 degrees. So a shift of 115 degrees, that takes us to 8,000 years ago. And then we can fine tune, refine, do the sensitivity analysis. And what does it tell us? Mahabharata war is not possible anytime after 5258 BC, just on that. Okay, now let's more fun. So this is 92, 95, you have seen this. And one thing what we noticed here, Adityaji, the only important point here is that in today's time, so this is today, 2000 CE, okay? It's important to know in today's time, the lunar month of Margashirsha occurs in December. Now, my point is, remember that December in the sense of the lunar month of Margashirsha occurs around the time of winter solstice. Remember that. Now, at the time of Mahabharata, because there is a gap of 105 days between the first day of the war and the day of winter solstice, and the war happened in Margashirsha, there is a gap of that 105 plus days between the winter solstice and the Margashirsha. So today they come together. Margashirsha and winter solstice occur at the same time, lunar month of Margashirsha. But at the time of Mahabharata war, they were separated by about 4 months. And based on that, using knowledge of astronomy, very basic elementary knowledge of astronomy, we can say that Mahabharata war happened 8,000 years ago. This is different than Shakra Amavasya, guys. Okay, this is just based on a Bhishma Nirvana and Margashirsha. Shakra Amavasya also leads us to the same conclusion. Mahabharata war happened 8,000 years ago. This is how fascinating, robust evidence, empirical astronomy and non-astronomy evidence of Mahabharata is. Now, so the takeaway is that Margashirsha is now happening when? At the time, now it is happening at the time of winter solstice. So that is at the interface of the Hemanta Rutu and a Shishira Rutu. But at the time of Mahabharata war, it was occurring during the first part of Sharat season. That's very important to remember. Okay, now we come to Bhagavad Gita. Bhishma Parva, which is where Bhagavad Gita is there. So I'm giving you both references. So Bhishma Parva is a critical edition if you go, Adhyay 32 and verse 21. In Bhagavad Gita, those who are student of Bhagavad Gita, they will simply say Bhagavad Gita, Adhyay 10, verse 21. Okay, because Bhagavad Gita is embedded in Mahabharata. It is part of Mahabharata. 2 shlok from the 10th Adhyay. So therefore I gave both references. Vibhuti Yoga. The student of Bhagavad Gita would know this as a Vibhuti Yoga. Now, many of you would have skipped through this chapter. Many of you might have completely skipped or might have just gone skimmed through this chapter. Now, those of you who are fascinated by this, you start seeing the relevance to this. Not even a single statement of Vyasadeva in Mahabharata, which is careless and casual. Nothing. There's nothing careless and casual. Now you start saying, and please pay attention from those who are relatively new to astronomy, or even if you think you are expert in astronomy, you might still need to focus to understand this. As I told last time, I know many PhDs and professors of astronomy teaching in American universities and of course Indian universities. But when it comes to understanding very basics of astronomy, they are disaster. Okay, just to keep their respect, I don't take their names, and that's not important. The important point is the description. Again, it is not against any individual. It is to bring to attention of people, seekers, the true reality of academia, okay, as it comes to astronomy in general, but especially Indian astronomy. So now let's look at the first of the 2 shloka that actually there are 3, but I'll come to that. So 2 from Bhagavad Gita. Adityana Maham Vishnur Jyotisham Ravi Anshuman. Okay. So now here just it's a Vibhuti Yoga, and Krishna is telling Arjun where Arjun can think of Krishna or think of that ultimate reality, okay, where he can think. Krishna is his representation of it. Adityana Maham Vishnu Jyotisham Ravi Anshuman. I would make it shorter. So Aditya, there are 12 Aditya, which is the 12 solar months, representation of 12 solar months, and the 12 Adityas have a name. He says, among the Adityas, I am a Vishnu. Now Vishnu, of course, the Bhagwan Vishnu, but remember, Bhagwan Vishnu is also identified with the sun. This whole verse, okay, is basically around the sun. Just keep that, except the Marichi, but Marichi is also related to sun, will not go there. But the first line and the last portion here. Then it says, among the nakshatras, nakshatranam aham shashi. And among the nakshatras, I am Shashi. And many individuals, many acharyas, again, remember, there may have a different context, but I want to tell you from an astronomy perspective, that translation is 100% wrong. Now, I am not saying in the sense of, oh, come on, like I know more than them. No. I'm standing or sitting on their shoulders. They are so kind. Because of their work, I can do, or Aditya Ji and I can have this conversation. I'm sitting on their shoulders. Therefore, by luck, I could see further. Okay, because they have taken care of many other things in Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita that has become, Shankaracharya says, okay, many people have commented, even in his time, whatever the time, whatever 2000 years ago, somewhere approximately, let's say, he says the durbodh, everything has become durbodh, like it's difficult to comprehend. And so his time it has happened. And then he wrote a commentary. Many other acharyas wrote a commentary. And still, a common question that we people ask us, like, okay, so Nilesh Ji or Aditya Ji, which Bhagavad Gita we should read? Because which translation we should read? Because with the thousands of translations, still the matter has not become easy. It has become even more complicated. Okay, all right. So Aditya, this is about the sun. Solar month, Adityana Maham Shashi, Jyotisham Ravi Anshuman. So Ravi is again the sun. And in that context also, he's saying Nakshatrana Maham Shashi. Among the Nakshatra, I am Shashi. What is that reference? Many people have translated it wrong by many acharyas. Okay, great acharyas. And you can see this common mistake everywhere. They said, okay, among the nakshatras, I am the moon. Because the name Shashi. That is not the correct translation. And I want to give a credit, 100% credit, to make me understand this to our friend Aditya Ji, Rupa Bhatti Ji. Okay. Again, I had skipped through this verse. Okay. I had not understood. And Rupa Bhatti Ji possibly told me, I don't know how many years ago, 5, 6, 7. Okay. We haven't kept track of it. And when she initially said it, I said, yeah, I always had this doubt in my mind why moon is called nakshatra, but I didn't know what to say. Maybe said at night when the nakshatras are visible, and moon is one of the, of course, the most distinct body at that time. Maybe that's why it was said. No, nothing is said carelessly. Nothing is said casually in the Bhagavad Gita and also Mahabharata. Okay, and we are not talking about the translation, transposition, transliteration, interpolation errors. They will be there in any text. We are not talking about them. Adityana Mahavishnu Jyotisha Ravi Anshuman. So this is about the solar, this is about the sun, the solar month. That's why it is saying among the Adityas I am Vishnu. There are 12 Adityas, 12 solar months. Okay, and like that. And among the nakshatras, I am Shashi. We'll see how to understand this. I'm going to come back in a minute. That's why this reference is required. This is the time of Mahabharat war, 5561 BC. Notice the position of the spring equinox. Okay, it is, say, think of it between Mrigashirsha and Punarvasu, or between Punarvasu and Ardra, somewhere there. Now remember, there is a specific mathematical point, but for human experience, like as to when the spring came, it's not like a one day. Okay, spring equinox is actually supposedly, ideally, from an Indian, from the Rutu understanding, 6 Rutus, it is the center of Vasanta Rutu. But which means the Vasanta Rutu has began before and it is going after. Okay, that's what it means. Now, what does it? It also means this is where the sun would be when the middle of spring, Vasanta Rutu, occurred during the Mahabharata times, which also means the full moon will be exactly opposite. Okay, so the month of Margashirsha was the beginning of a Sharad Rutu, exactly opposite of the Vasanta Rutu. Okay, that's why I said you need to know the basic astronomy. This is very basic ABCs elementary of astronomy. Okay, now, so now you should understand why there is so much emphasis on this. In the Vibhuti Yoga, he's saying Nakshatranam Amshashi, Now, Siddhanam Kapilo Muni. Okay, who is that Kapilo Muni? In this same chapter, you will see that is either a descendant, but he's referring to the creator of a Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya Sutra. Okay, and there is a reference, the multiple references to Kapila Muni in the Mahabharata. Again, that's not the subject today, so I'll not go there. So my point is, all the vibhutis are Krishna is telling those vibhutis to Arjun, which will make sense to Arjun in the context, which is to say Desha, Kala, Patra, the place where he is there, the time when he is there, 7,500 years ago, and the circumstances or the context. Okay, so for example, if you say Siddhanam Kapilo Muni or Sthavaranam Himalaya, some to average person in America, Himalayas, fortunately, these people know. Okay, but otherwise, people say, what is that? But if you say, well, Sthavaranam Himalaya, but in the American context, you can refer that to Rockies. And that's perfectly fine. That's the beauty of the universal message of Bhagavad Gita. But let's move on for today's thing. Now, there is another shlok in the same Vibhuti Yoga. And Aditya ji did not know what I was going to talk about. So therefore, I'm saying, see how it is. And he said, Krishna says, to him, out of all the Vedas are great. But to him, what is more dear is the Sama Veda. Brhat Sam Tatha Samnam Gayatri Chanda Samaham. Gayatri as a Chanda. Remember, we talked about the Chanda Shastra and whatnot. But Brhat Sam Tatha Sam, So now among the Vedas, for example, Sama or particular Sama Gayan, something is saying, why? Again, that will be a digression. I don't want to go there. But if you look at typically you see the reference to three Vedas, Ruk, Yaju, Sama. Ruk, Sama, Yaju. You see that in Bhagavad Gita, you will see it everywhere. That is what? That is what the Karma Jnana Bhakti. Jnana Karma Bhakti. So Rigveda is more focused on a Jnana there in this particular context. Yaju is on a Yajna and therefore a Karma. And Sama is that balanced attitude that is on a Bhakti. Now, because Krishna is emphasizing Bhakti aspect, in that context, he's saying, hey, for that Samaved, perfect. But now let's go further. Now what he's saying, second line, we are going to skip this Chanda, the meter, the Gayatri meter. Then he's going Masanam. So here at the top, Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Don't forget, among the Nakshatras, I am Shashi. And now he's saying Masanam Margashirshoyam Rutunam Kusumakara. Among the months, and here specifically is referring to lunar months. Okay, Saumya Masa. Okay, that's also another thing. Why Saumya Masa? Comes from Soma, the lunar month. That's what it means. Masanam Margashirshoyam. Among the months, I am Margashirsha. Why? Krishna is picking a specific month. Why Krishna is picking a specific nakshatra, in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, nakshatranam aham shashi. Masanam margashirshoyam. Rutunam kusumakara. That we can possibly understand. The month where you see the months of flowers, okay, or the season of flowers. Yeah, naturally people will like that. Now, while you see the focus in Mahabharata on a Margashirsha, Aditya ji, I want to just make a quick dotted connection and then move on. You see that same emphasis when you go to Ramayana on the month of Chaitra, everywhere. Why? Because the position of the lunar month of Margashirsha at the time of Mahabharata is exactly the position of lunar month of Chaitra at the time of Ramayana. How beautiful. But let's move on with Margashirsha. Now, why Margashirsha and why Nakshatranamam Shashi also refers to Mrigashirsha? Okay, for that, we have to, of course, I already explained that before. The Nakshatra Devata of a Mrigashirsha is Shashi, Soma, Moon. Okay, Moon. So now there are many other verses references, but I'm pulling one from Anushasan Parva. Here, different importance of each nakshatra and what to do and so on is being discussed. People can go Anushasan Parva, critical edition, chapter 63, and read all the verses. I'm pulling number 7. This one is like it begins with a Kritika. That's another hyperlink. Why Kritika first? We will cover that some other time. But when it comes to Mrigashirsha, the nakshatra Mrigashirsha is not described by the name Mrigashirsha, and it can be described in many places it is. But here it says Samvatsatu nakshatre Soma Daivate. That nakshatra whose devata is a Soma. Again, that is a reference to Mruga nakshatra. Now you start understanding why the meaning of nakshatrana maham shashi. Among the nakshatras, I am Shashi. That Shashi is reference to the devata of a nakshatra, just like a Soma Devate. And it is referring to Mruga Nakshatra. Why it is referring to Mruga Nakshatra? Because of the position of the spring equinox from which the solar year begins. And this is all about the solar year. Adityana Maham Vishnu, 12 Adityas. Okay. So it is through this Bhagavad Gita reference, Bhagavad Gita Desha Kala Patra, it is time stamping when the Bhagavad Gita was stated by Krishna to Arjun. When the spring equinox was near Mrigashirsha. The Mrigashirsha is a very broad one, by the way, guys. Okay, the whole Orion constellation that includes Ardra, that includes Mrigashirsha. For a nakshatra purpose, we separate Ardra and Mrigashirsha, but otherwise, as a Orion, okay, the whole Mruga, the 3 stars that you can see here, okay, 3 belt stars, that is all Mrigashirsha. Anyways, so that's that. And Masanam Margashirsha, remember I told you, it is the month of Kusumakara. Now, of course, Vasanta Rutu is also Kusumakara, but Sharad Rutu in the Indian context, just after the rain, everything is green. And now there are flowers. Think of our Vijayadashmi time, the Dashahara times, okay? Rutu Naam Kusumakara, the Ganesh festival time. We get all kinds of flowers for our Ganesh festival, the Bhadrapad month, which is coming soon. That is that connection. In our times, think of the month of September. That would give you the context, okay, for the flowers. Okay, let's move on. So if this is clear, now going back to the time of Mahabharata, what you see, now this one is bit shifted. I should have shown you, for example, remember where the vernal equinox was, the spring equinox. It was like somewhere between Ardra and Punarvasu. So this needs to be shifted, which means what? When the sun was at the Mrigashirsha nakshatra, like sun would be here right now, that when it comes here, that is when the Vasanta Rutu would begin. Okay, so, and of course the year would begin with the vernal equinox, so that's where the year is beginning. And exactly opposite would be the position of the full moon, okay, as seen from the earth and the way we are going to look at it. So which is to say sun would be here, and if the full moon is here, that is the lunar month of Margashirsha, which is the first month of Sharad Rutu, like here, and it will be the season of flowers. Now, something more. In the same Mahabharata, we also, during the Shanti Parva, there is a discussion between Yudhishthir and Bhishma on many subjects, all kinds of different, Raja Dharma, Moksha Dharma, Apad Dharma, all kinds of discussion. And in that Raja Dharma discussion, they are discussing all kinds of subjects. Shanti Parva is worth reading just for that. But the specific context I want to bring today, going back to Margashirsha and also Chaitra, how fascinating, but Chaitra is coming here for a different reason, not the same reason that Chaitra is such a big emphasis in Ramayana. The Chaitra and Chaitra is emphasized in Ramayana for exactly the same reason Margashirsha is emphasized in the Mahabharata. But here, it is in the context of when is the suitable time for the war, when it's a suitable time for a war. And in that discussion, when Yudhishthir asked the question, Bhishma Acharya is answering. He says, Chaitram va Margashirsham va Sena Yoga Prashasate. If you are ready, or if you want to get the preparation done, or if your army is prepared, the good time to do the attack, or good time to do anything related to Sena, the march of a Sena, the movement of a Sena, actually a Yuddha, whatever you need to do, the Chaitra and Margashirsha, or the timing that begins with Chaitra, begins with Margashirsha. Because, once you start the military arrangements, a movement, then it may be some while before the Yuddha actually takes place. So beginning with Chaitra, beginning with Margashirsha, and just some time after that, it is not clearly specified, but you have to understand it cannot be forever because the season will change. Is the ideal time a optimum time for carrying out Sena Yoga? Okay, anything related to military operations in a simple way. Why? It gives the explanation, pakta sasya hi prithvi, that time the crops are ready. The crops are ready now, so those related works are also done, but the crops are ready. So food supply is there. When? Chaitra, beginning with Chaitra, beginning with Margashirsha. Now let's take that information. This is said at the time of Mahabharat war. Okay, just after the Mahabharat war, this is a discussion between Yudhishthir and Bhishma during those, for 6 days. It happened for 6 days when Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows for more than 95 days. Okay, we know the exact timing. 9 days, then after a month, and after that. So about like 40 days after from the Bhishma fell down. And now, so about 50 days after the Mahabharat war began and of course ended after 18 days, this discussion is going on. Now let's take that information and I'm going to superimpose that at the Kurukshetra. Okay. Bhishmacharya is saying this at a Kurukshetra. I'm not saying it is only applicable to Kurukshetra. It will be applicable to India. But depending on the Desha Kala Patra, you will have to change this information, modify this information. But let's take this because the Kurukshetra Mahabharat war also happened at Kurukshetra. Bhishmacharya is in the northern India. So I'm just taking Kurukshetra. But depending on the area, if it's a Tamil Nadu or if it's a Bengal or if it's a Kerala, if it's a Maharashtra, Karnataka, we will have to adjust these things. These things may not exactly match for each location. But Kurukshetra, because this is where the discussion is happening, this is where the Mahabharat war happened. And now we actually know that the Mahabharat war also happened during the month of Margashirsha. I hope all these things are coming together for you guys. Now let's take Chaitra and Margashirsha, but I'm going to take you to the timing of Mahabharata, which is what? At the time of Mahabharata, the Chaitra occurred during January. Now, it's not exact January. What I try to say is Chaitra occurred after the time of winter solstice. So the first part of Shishira Rutu, the winter season. Okay, that's important. Don't get focused on a Jan. But today we have that, which is what? Today it is a first part of Shishira Rutu. 21st December is the winter solstice, right? So that's why it helps. Now, what do you know? In terms of the weather, it is comfortable. And as it proceeds, it's going to get warm, which is also acceptable. And eventually it's going to get hot, which is not desired. And then finally, of course, it will get sweltering. This is Kurukshetra discussion I'm doing. Now, if you look at the Margashirsha, that is in our times, think of it as the time of September. Why September? Because at the time of Mahabharat war, Margashirsha occurred during the first half of Sharat season. And what is the first half of Sharat season? Think of as the 23rd September and 30 days before that. So entire September and maybe last few days of August. That is the time we are talking in our times, just for people in India, and so that you can relate to the weather and the timing and the flowers and the season and the greenery and whatnot. Again, it's saying that time is a good time to start the military operations. Why? Because again, the crops are ready. Now, which crops they are talking? Here, September, people can relate with the monsoon and, the rainy season and 2 or 3 months of rainy season from June, July, August, 2 or 3 months of rainy season have gone. And now we have the crops ready. You can see this rainy season, by the way, through this precipitation here. Okay. And how the weather is hot and muggy and so on and so forth. Now, this is at Kurukshetra again. Overcast, you can see that, what's going to clear versus overcast and so on and so forth. So rainy season has gone and the crops are ready. We understand this. What about the Chaitra? What about the just after the winter solstice? The second crop. You might have heard Kharif and Rabi in the Indian context. Okay, Kharif and Rabi, 2 crops. So the second crops after this first crop has come out, by September, August, September, October, somewhere, the second different types of crops, different types of grains or lentils are sowed, and they are harvested at this time. Again, the food grains are available for horses, for the warriors, and so on and so forth. Okay. And then it says, one more thing. It says, Naivati Shito Natyushna, not too hot, not too cold. Again, remember, this is in an Indian context, okay? Not too hot, not too cold. And I'll tell you something. For example, what they say, this comfortable, this area. Actually, I've been to Kurukshetra in our times during January, multiple times. And I'll tell you, in the daytime, of course, it's comfortable, but at nighttime, actually, it's very cold. So my point is that it's comfortable, sometimes written somewhat from the point of view of a person who is not from India, but like somebody generating this data sitting in North America or Europe, cold places for the world. I mean, the standards or the criterias, what is comfortable, what is hot, etc., is used sometimes by the European standards or North American standards. That can create confusion too. So I'm going to show you one more chart, and we are almost done. What I'm showing you is the average temperatures at Kurukshetra. By the way, here, the Thanesar, which is Thaneshwar, which is nothing but Kurukshetra. Anyone can go to Google and check that. Okay, it's Thaneshwar, the great Jyotirlinga of Sthanu Bhagwan, which is a Shiva Mandir, which is right at Kurukshetra. That's the Thanesar, exactly Kurukshetra. Just the names are different. I pulled another chart for average temperature of Kurukshetra. Remember, it is saying it's not too hot, it's not too cold. I just wanted to show you, again, with the limited data that I have, but still it can be beautifully shown with the average temperatures. Okay, so this is our Chaitra of the Mahabharata times. Okay, don't confuse with the January, but in our times, if you want to experience how it feels, we have to think of January. And if you want to think of Margashirsha lunar month of the Mahabharata times, 6th millennium BC, you have to think of September, because that was the first month of Sharad season, 30 days before September 23. Okay. And in this case, you can say what? Like 30 days after 21st of December and so on. But the point is, after Chaitra and after September, look what is happening. So fascinating for Kurukshetra. So these temperatures, like average temperatures, now Americans won't think like that, but in the Indian context, these are cold temperatures, these are cold temperatures, these are hot temperatures. Okay, and say again, depending on the location, Desha Kala Patra, in Mumbai, for example, where I grew up, where I spent significant time, or Konkan, like 30 degrees Celsius, so like 85 degree Fahrenheit. Chicago folks will say, oh my God, after 85, I don't go out, it's too hot. Well, that's like a normal temperature. Nobody even watches what the temperature is. In my place, where I grew up, Konkan, or Mumbai, where also I grew up and spent significant time, nobody looks at the temperature. What is the temperature? They laugh at you, like, what do you mean? Yeah, whatever it is, it will be there. The point is, they are comfortable. I mean, maybe not comfortable, but they're used to it, that temperature. My point is, after this is extremely cold. Okay, for example, Aditya ji would know, but in Mumbai, for example, when the temperatures go here, okay, like the 25 degrees Celsius or just below that, between 20 and 25, all the folks of Mumbai pull out their sweaters, and in America, we would laugh about that. We will walk in a, short and just a t-shirt, things like that. My point is, it's relative. But the thing is, I want to show the connection. Naivati Shito Natyushna, not too hot, not too cold. At Kurukshetra, during Chaitra and Margashirsha of the time of Mahabharata, which is what? Chaitra is falling here, Margashirsha is falling here, the first month of Sharad. And what was happening? After that, this is very cold. This is very hot here. And this is very cold. But just after Chaitra, just after Margashirsha, the time, if you look at, say, next month or so, next couple of months, where are the temperatures hovering around? The average temperatures are between 15 and 25 in both cases. Not too hot, not too cold, for the range that is available. How beautiful, guys. Now, those of you who are into science, who have a Vijnana Buddhi, who have a logical reasoning skills, you will be fascinated by it. But some of us, who may not understand, either you have to take on a Shraddha or build your Vijnana Buddhi, build your Tarka Shastra skills. Otherwise, you will be like, oh, okay, I'm totally lost. Guys, don't come to me. Start studying Bhagavad Gita, start studying Vijnan, start studying Tarka Shastra, so Nyaya Darshana, and then you will be totally fascinated with what this data is. Okay, see how the Chaitra, Margashirsha, their description, their context for the movement of the army, their context for the operations, their context for the flowery season, Masanam Margashirshoyam Rutunam Kusumakara, or their context for the beginning of a year, Adityanam Aham Vishnu. Among the 12 Aditya solar months, I am Vishnu, and even the connection that Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Why? Because that's where the year begins. Samvatsar begins at the point of spring equinox, and that is where the Mrigashirsha, the whole Mrigashirsha is sitting, whose nakshatra devata is Shashi, Soma, and that's why it is mentioned. Quickly, to give you one more thing, and I might have gone over time. So Shanti Parva, now people will say, hold on, but in our times, yes, the solar year can begin with, I'll just go for a second here. In our times, we would say, yeah, I mean, we accept that. By the way, those of you who are on Twitter should start following the Date Panchang at date, date as in a day, DATE, but it's a name of a family, Panchanga makers, Date Panchang, and start following this. With their collaboration, I've started Bharat Dinadarshika. The first year of the solar year is the day of vernal equinox. The first day of the lunar year is a Chaitra. Okay, the first day of a Chaitra. So because of that, now people will say, hold on, but yeah, so we understand the solar year begins with the day of a vernal equinox, fair. But in our times, we are beginning the lunar month with what? With approximately Vasanta Rutu. It's not perfect Vasanta Rutu anymore. Okay, because it's the second half. Chaitra now falls in the second half of Vasanta Rutu. But if you go back 2000 years ago, when we say Ashwini is our first nakshatra and the year begins with the Gudi Padwa or Ugadi, Chaitra Shukla Pratipada, yes, 2000 years ago, they did match. The Chaitra was during the first half of Vasanta. Now it is in the second half of Vasanta. So lunar month is beginning with, lunar year is beginning with also Vasanta Rutu. Yes, in our times. But the reason I was showing you these next verses, Adityaji, and for our audience, is to say that just like in today's time, India has many panchang, like of course the English calendar, English panchang now beginning with January, but we also have a year beginning with Chaitra, but also year beginning with Vaishak, like a Vaisakhi. We also have a year beginning with a Kartika. You also get ancient references, year beginning with winter solstice. But you also get references year beginning with Sharad. To the extent, this is what I'm showing you on this sign. To the extent, just like we say Varsha, where does the word Varsha as in year comes from? It comes from the rainy Varsha, okay, rainy season. It was a very easy for masses to know when the new year has began because they connected, our great rishis connected also with the natural phenomenon of a seasonal rain, monsoon rain. Okay, that matches with the time of summer solstice. That's why we call it Varsha. How many Varsha? How old? Like when somebody has a birthday in Marathi, will say Kiti Varshacha Zhala. How many years? That year is used for Varsha or Varsha used for a year is based on that. Similarly, on this page, what I'm showing you, and these are all references from Mahabharata. By the way, this is not a tradition limited to Mahabharata. You can see that in Ramayana, and actually you can see that also in the Rigveda. Rigveda has 20 plus references to Sharada connected with a year, connected with a Samvatsara. And here, just quickly, I'll say you, Sharada Shatam, live for 100 years. Sharadam Shatam, Sharadam Shatam, Sharadam Shatam, Sharadam Shatam. Just to demonstrate, I pulled 4 references. If you read Mahabharata, you're going to find more. If you see Ramayana, you will see the reference to Chaitra and the big deal with a Sharada Shatam. And also in Rigveda, it is there. My point is, the Sharada, the word Sharada was also synonymous for a year, for a Samvatsara. It's very important to realize. Now you start connecting. Sharada is a synonymous for a year, both lunar year, solar year. Adityanamaham Shashi, Nakshatranamaham Shashi, Adityanamaham Vishnu, the solar months, okay, among Vishnu. And in that context, Nakshatranamaham Shashi. Among the nakshatras, I am Shashi, meaning that nakshatra whose devata is a Shashi, which is Mrigashirsha. And why is that? Because that's where the spring equinox is. Why Masana Margashirshoyam? Because a lunar year is beginning with a Margashirsha. Now, as soon as I say this, Adityaji, this is my last point. As soon as I say this, many pseudo Mahabharata researchers will jump. Okay, where do you get this? Where do you get this Margashirsha as the first lunar month? Guys, for heaven's sake, if you claim yourself to be the researchers of Mahabharata, for heaven's sake, read Mahabharata for a change. Okay, I'm going to show you the reference. If you go to Anushasan Parva, twice, by the way, in the chapter 106, but also Adhyaya 109. There is a description in the context of doing certain, what you call say, vrata. Okay. But what is given, if you see the list, it begins with a Margashirsha. Okay, so Vyasadeva again is explaining to Yudhishthir, okay, in the month of Margashirsha, if you do this, these are the benefits of that vrata and so on. And then he says, if you do this in the month of Pausha and so on. And he ends it with, if you do something in the month of Kartika. He does that in chapter 106 of Anushasana. In the 109 chapter, now he's talking about a vrata to be done on the day of a Dwadashi, like a 12th day, of the Paksha. And there he says, again, he starts saying, okay, when the Dwadashi of a Margashirsha happens, you do this, and this is the benefit. Then when the Dwadasha of a Margashirsha Paush happens, and then Falgun, and then Chaitra, Vaishak, Jeshta, Ashad, Shravan, Bhadrapad, Ashwin. Then it comes to Ashwin. Then he says Kartik, and then he ends the list. Again, Margashirsha is the first month, Kartika is the last month. You are going to see these descriptions again in many places through the Vanavas of a Pandava. Okay, that Kartika, now they say, when we hear November, December coming, what do we say? Oh, it's November, my God, the year is over. Or when we see in the calendar December, it says, oh, November, December, my God, the year is over. Similar kind of descriptions you are going to find in the Mahabharata during the Vanavasa portions of Pandavas. They say, oh, Kartika Purnima is here, the year is over. So actually the year was over with the end of Kartika, and with a Margashirsha, the new year, lunar year began. And you can see this, that is already there. There's additional evidence I did not share, but I'm sharing you this additional evidence. With that, I will stop. Again, if this fascinates you guys, you have every reason to keep away the excuse that you don't understand Sanskrit, keep away the excuse that you do not understand astronomy. Well, you have to study Sanskrit, you have to study astronomy, but with some Shraddha conviction, you can rely on the translation until you become an expert and able to critique it, and that's all welcome. Same thing, on the Sanskrit side, you can critique, on the astronomy side, you can critique. But if you are fascinated, these are the books, these are the covers, that's how they look on Amazon. And of course, if you're in India, don't have to buy through Amazon. They may be costlier. Subbu Publications. The links are always there on all my social handles, whether it's a Twitter or Facebook. Okay. So Subbu Publications, right at the top in my profile, there is a link to that. Go there, click on it, get the book, start studying. Okay. It's very fascinating. Aditya ji, sorry, I went over time.
No, my challenge to all these people are, I'm speaking in English, thinking in Sanskrit, but speaking in English. But my challenge to you is, if you cannot learn Sanskrit, try learning some other language of India. Maybe if you speak Hindi, learn Marathi.
Yes.
If you speak Marathi, then try to learn Telugu. Because Marathi speakers can easily speak Hindi. But try to learn some other language of India, and you see how much time will it take to you.
Yeah.
Again, you have to rely on Sanskrit dhatu to understand them.
Correct.
So, invariably, if you learn another language of India, you learn Sanskrit indirectly.
Yeah. And I want to add something. I actually wanted to say at the beginning and then I forgot, but glad you just made that context in a different way. We get many comments. You and me get many comments, and I get these comments everywhere. Bhai, Hindi mein bhi baat karo. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. That's a very legitimate and a genuine point. My point is, I just want to emphasize what you said. Most of the people whose first language is not Hindi, okay, they will agree, not everyone, but majority will agree, but at least I can talk of my experience. Many people who only speak Hindi or Hindi as their first language, okay, or only speak Hindi, or even they speak Hindi, but some artificial pride for Hindi. Okay, what they don't realize is that majority of the India, I mean, majority meaning I'm not talking just by population, but by states, their mother tongue is not Hindi. Right. And they do not learn Hindi because by going to school. They learn Hindi because many Hindi speaking people, now the things are changing, they don't know any other language. So to your point, so in order to communicate with them, we learn Hindi in our broken way, and they laugh at us, and which I enjoy, by the way, when we speak Hindi. But I have a special appreciation for people who don't know Nagari script as their script. Okay, because Marathi, some advantage. It's the same script as Hindi and a Sanskrit. I mean, most of the text in Sanskrit written in Nagari. But I have a special appreciation for peoples of, say, South India, Southern India, not South India, Southern India, like Telugu, and so. If their script is different, and you will find many of them I know, actually, a good number of them, expert in Sanskrit, try to learn Sanskrit against all odds. Okay, same thing possibly from the northeast. I don't know all the scripts, but Assami script, Bengali script, even this. So my point is, it is a very lazy excuse if somebody says कि भाई हिंदी में बोलो तो हमारे समझ में आएगी. No, they have every reason to learn other language, as you said, not necessarily English. Learn some other language, and if you learn two languages, then all other languages become so easily accessible.
Very easy.
That's the beauty of it, right? So it's a very important point. So yes, people can continue in, if they are dogmatic, okay, and lazy, they can continue to say this ki bhai Hindi mein bolo. Nothing, I don't see anything wrong with it. Somebody from Marathi, they say, I don't understand any other, it will be great if you say in Marathi. Yeah, because I can speak Marathi, I give lectures in Marathi. Because I can speak English, I do in English, I do in Hindi. One more thing, if I could speak English, Sanskrit, which I don't, English also I don't know that well. My point is, Aditya ji and myself, if we knew Sanskrit well, we would have done it in Sanskrit as the first priority. Then we would have gone for English. So I can tell you my choice. If Mary Chalti and if I had that ability, I would do it in Sanskrit first, then English, then possibly Marathi, my Matrubhasha. Then I will go to other languages.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
So please, don't hammer the channel on the Hindi and English, because we have a lot of shows in Hindi, and I can tell you in that I get the comments, please speak in English. so that also happens because there are a lot of people who don't understand, and lately we have been getting a lot of hits from Ukraine and Russia and Europe. All Europeans don't speak English, and some of the comments are in European languages. I had to literally put them in a translator and check it out what they are actually trying to say. Yeah. So just this channel is US based and primarily we speak, but I am making an accommodation for all the Hindi speakers also.
Yeah, I'll make Aditi, a quick point, just because you mentioned Ukrainian and Russian and whatnot. I am interacting with researchers, Mahabharata researchers, Indian civilizational researchers, who can only write in whatever the language of Czech Republic, Czech Republic, only Italian, only French, only German, okay, and Spanish. And this is a fact. Actually, I mean, with you, I will share you some of the emails and show you. We are doing research in the background, and their English is not good. Okay, so what do? I try to learn Italian, I try to learn Spanish and French to the extent I need for my research. So this is a message for the people who only just focus on Hindi. Nothing wrong in what they're asking, but they have to give up their tamas, give up their laziness, and learn, as you said, you gave a good prescription, learn at least one more language, and then all other language becomes accessible.
Very easy. Like India is united because of Sanskrit. Telugu, Marathi has 65% Sanskrit. It's more like, I give one example, Panas. Panas is a kathal.
Yeah.
In North India. Kathal is, and Bengali, it's also kathal.
Yeah.
But the Panas is the Sanskrit name.
Sanskrit, Panasa in Ramayana. You'll see in Ramayana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also there is a black fruit which is mentioned, for which the wrong translation is the meat. So Bhutayamas, which is also bale available in Maharashtra, which is in black color. Blackish color. And so the point is, the many other languages of India has far more Sanskrit content. Telugu is 75%. Tamil people may not agree with me, but 80% people agree. 20% people are the extremists.
Yeah.
They will agree.
There's a lot of Sanskrit in Tamil.
Lot of Sanskrit, 75 to 80% Sanskrit.
Malayalam, I could understand Malayalam. I did one clubhouse talk, and this Ravi Shankarji was translating in Malayalam, and I could of course I knew what he was translating, but still my point is I could understand in Malayalam what he's saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And the human communication doesn't depend on language also. Human communication depends on many at subconscious levels also. That's a sign.
Absolutely.
Like Absolutely. if you're going to a shop, like you, Nilesh and I have traveled to many countries, they don't speak English nor Hindi. but still we are able to communicate by messaging, by direction, by our eyes,
Gestures.
gestures. Like when I went to Japan for the first time, to search a vegetarian meal in Japan, you have to make an exercise over there. That time.
Mm, mm.
Now it's very easy. Like last 3 years, I've been there one time, and very easy to.
Yeah, now the application says show me vegan options,
Yeah.
and then it will show you.
Thank you so much, Nilesh ji, and
Thank you.
always a pleasure for this discussion. And viewers, बीच में था मसाला, दोनों साइड था bread. तो वड़ा पाव पूरा मिला है आपको. Thank you
Yes.
so much for joining the show, and let us know your feedback, and do share this video widely, including the playlist of Nilesh Oak, which is there on our channel. Thank you and namaste.
Namaskar.